Welcome to Overwhelmed to Overcomer podcast with coach, encourager, and strategist Anna McLaughlin. If you're a Christian woman who has big dreams rooted in an even bigger God, but most days those dreams feel completely out of reach, trust me, I get it. As a homeschooling mama of 4, entrepreneur, investor, and all-around wearer of many hats, I am right there with you. And yet the Lord invites us to live out our God-given purpose now in the midst of the madness. So let's explore together how we can know our calling and walk in it today with clarity, with courage, with each other. It's time for you to live the life you love and love the life you live. Let's do this thing.
Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Overwhelmed to Overcomer. I have such a fun conversation in store for you. I'm laughing already. I'm excited already. Marita Littauer is here. Marita, thank you so much for being here.
It's my pleasure to be with you. Thank you, Anna.
So we're going to be talking personality.
Yeah.
Marita, can you take us into just a little bit about your background, your story, and how you came to be such an expert on this topic?
Well, it's kind of been like my life's work. When I was just 9 years old, my mother read a book by Tim LaHaye called The Spirit Controlled Temperament. And for her, it was a life-changing book because she realized that for the first time that just because she was different from my father did not make her wrong. And he had made her feel like that because she was different, she was wrong. And so this book was really eye-opening for her. And as she read it, she started talking to her friends about these different, what he called temperaments. And as she read that, people were asking her questions and wanting to know more. And my mother and I have a very similar personality in that she was contagious as she talked to people about this. And so before long, before she'd even really finished reading the book, she and my father were hosting what we would now call small groups in their home. Now, I'm 67, and this was when I was 9 years old. So this was, 55, whatever years ago. And churches didn't do small groups then like they do now. And while this was not officially a church function, the people in attendance were primarily from the church that my family attended at the time. And so my mother would kind of study 1 week, one chapter ahead of the people who were coming to the class. And as a part of that, my father is obviously a different personality from my mother, and I'm sure we'll get into, but I find that we tend to marry someone who is opposite from us. And I believe that's the way God designed us. We're naturally attracted to someone who is strong where we are weak and weak where we are strong and so forth. But we can talk more about that. But my father realized as they were going through this book in this small group kind of setting that they needed to have some kind of a test. Now, we don't like to use the word test now because that implies pass or fail, but that was kind of the mindset. And so literally one night, and I believe God inspired, my father created what we now sell as the Wired That Way personality profile.
Wow.
And it has gone through many iterations, but the exact profile itself has remained the same. And we've added support material to it and charts and made it more self-explanatory as a unit. But my father literally one night created this entire personality profile, and it has been in use for churches, schools, and business all over the world, literally, for more than 50 years.
Oh, it's incredible. And so
Yeah.
then what led you, Marita, to pick up your mother's torch and carry this work forward?
Well, it was just natural for me. I'm kind of her carbon copy. She passed away in 2020, but I'm kind of the carbon copy of her. People would always say about us that, I'm the chip off the old block, or we are two peas in a pod. But my mother started speaking on this, as I mentioned, from that little experience in her living room. And then my mother has a dramatic personal testimony that, hallelujah, I do not have. but her personal testimony includes the loss of 2 children, one right after the other after me. And I don't have a strong memory of that because they were born one right after the other, but both died young of an incurable brain damage. And so then that's part of her testimony. But as she was a new Christian, people started talking to her. And again, she has kind of my personality, so she is very engaged.
Magnetic.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so people started inviting her to share her Christian testimony, but then also how she got over the depression of losing 2 children.
Yes.
And so she started going places and speaking. And I was by then about 13 years old. And she started taking me with her. And so I would travel with her. I mean, she wasn't going globally at that point, which ultimately she did. But at that point, she was, speaking at little ladies' retreats and ladies' luncheons at the churches and things like that. And I would go with her. And then she would say, Marita, why don't you come up front and tell the ladies about?
Wow.
And so for me, it was just very natural I'd go up front, and I didn't have any natural fear that many people have of a microphone. And I would just go up front and tell the story she wanted me to tell people. And so I grew up with this. But then for me, when I first started working, and I started working at a young age, and when I started working, I realized for the first time, I had to interact with people that I didn't necessarily like, that I didn't necessarily want to be with. Because if you think about it, up until that point as a youngster, if you don't like someone, you don't play with them.
Oh, that's true. You just pick your people.
Yeah, and you pick up your toys and go home if you don't like them. But when you are in the work world, and in my case, it was fast food. But if I didn't like someone, that was, I was stuck working with them. I didn't like the boss. You have to get along. But because this knowledge of the personality types was so ingrained in me from all the years of traveling with my mother and listening to her and so forth, when I started working with these people that I maybe didn't like, I was able to easily identify, oh, well, she's a popular sanguine, or he's a perfect melancholy.
Yes.
And I could adjust my approach to them using this knowledge. And so I feel that what I have brought to the table on this body of work that we call the personalities, I feel that what I have brought to the table is this ability to use it in identifying the personality type of others, and then adjusting your approach to them. Where for my mother, what was really eye-opening for her was understanding who she was.
Yes.
But because I grew up with this, that was not really an issue to me. So when I reference this, I like to use the Bible verse Romans 12:18 as the foundation for the way I teach the personalities. And Romans 12:18 nicely breaks into 3 parts. The first part says, if possible. And I believe that's like God is giving us a disclaimer. It's like he's saying, I know you can't do this, but you should try. This is something you should strive for. So the first part says, if possible. The second part says, so far as it depends on you. And I believe that's God saying to us, I know you can't control all those other people, but you can control you. You can control your interaction with them and how you react to them. And then the third part of that verse says, be at peace with all men.
Yes.
Now, had God simply said, be at peace with all men, that's not something we can fulfill. Because, we all, I'm sure everyone listening or watching today can think of someone in their life that they have tried so hard to get along with. And there are those people who just plain do not want to be gotten along with.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of the emphasis that I bring to this body of work, is using these concepts to improve your relationships with others.
So we're going to dig in, Marita, into the work itself. But because of what Overwhelmed to Overcomer is, I want to highlight one thing that I think is so profound about your story, which is your mom started her message in her small group, and we get to see where it is 55 years later. Like, one of the things that we talk about in this room, in this podcast, is faithfulness can be very small things compounded over time, because we get overloaded. A lot of the folks that listen are, like have kids at home, or have a job that they're working on, or have a business, and life feels really full. And so when we think of being faithful, and we think of growing a platform or growing a message, we think about the end result of,
Right.
traveling all over the world, bringing this message to millions, books published, and all of that. It starts with sharing what passion the Lord has placed in us, which usually starts with personal revelation.
Yes.
One of the things we say in here is to through. He gave it to us. Now we need to push it out through. And your mother so beautifully shared from her bent, in her way, what God was doing in her life as a personal revelation, brought it to others, and then here we see where it's gone 55 years later. It's
Yes.
just profound, and
And
how it shaped you.
She wrote 40 books and traveled all over the world, and mostly Europe and Australia, not much in the Asia part of the world, but she traveled all over the world, addressing the personalities and other things. But that was really her primary topic.
Incredible. Absolutely incredible. Okay, so now take us into this work, because so beautiful, the scripture that you gave, Romans 12:18, just this idea of, like, it, if possible, and giving, I mean, how many times do we really see conditions like that in scripture? There's so many places, love one another fully from the heart, be perfect even as your Father is perfect. There's all these places where there's no conditions, but the Lord knows. I know, but man, in relationships, we're going to give you an if possible, and we're going to give you an as far as it depends on you. So we've got these nods, these almost little winks from the Lord of, like, all right, I know it's a tall order, but we're going to dig into it. So I think start us here, Marita, unless you think we should go somewhere else first. Tell us the 4 types from your paradigm, and what each one is.
Sure. I like to start with the one that is called the popular sanguine, and you can just see here, there's the chart. That's probably not the best one for me to show you because it's kind of big, but I like to reference colors as well. And I also like to emphasize for people, if you're different, or if you're familiar here, this is a better chart. If you're familiar with a different system, that's okay.
Yeah.
Just kind of translate as we go along, because this is not, we didn't create this material. These ideas of these different personality types they're older than Christ. They go back to Hippocrates, the great Greek philosopher thinker. And what he did is he originally observed that there were people out there who were different. And with the limited medical knowledge and scientific knowledge that there was at the time, he perceived that the reason people had different personalities was that they had different fluids in their body.
Oh, I remember this.
Yeah, so those of us who were kind of the loud, fun, outgoing ones, he felt that we had red hot blood coursing through our veins. So the original terms that were used for these personality types are Greek words. However, because they are Greek to most people, I added to them a modern day adjective that helps you have a sense of what that personality is. And then I also add to it a color that I like to reference that also gives you an idea. So I like to start with the one that is what I call the popular sanguine personality, which is also the yellow. And that personality, I start there because we are the most obvious personality type to identify.
Yes.
We are the ones in your children, you might say about the popular sanguine child, oh, he's never met a stranger. It's that child that loves everyone and talks to everyone and goes up, they don't have a lot of fear unless there's been something specific in their life that caused that fear. But naturally, they're very outgoing, they're happy, they've never met a stranger, they draw people to them, have a lot of friends. And I use the color yellow because it's kind of like the happy face. And that's what that personality represents. And then next, I like to go to the perfect melancholy personality represented by the color blue, because this personality is the more deep, thoughtful, introspective personality. And I like to explain them in this order because these two personality types are naturally opposite from one another. Where the popular sanguine is fun-loving and outgoing and talkative, the perfect melancholy is the opposite. They are introverted. They are thoughtful, introspective. They don't talk to strangers. And even as children, getting conversation out of them is difficult. It's like, how was school today? It was fine. And so they are the opposite. So I like to start here and go there because of that opposite nature. Then we go to the red, or the powerful choleric personality. And this personality is the one who is the natural boss. Since I've given you children examples, my mother used to tell a story about my big sister, that my mother never had to worry in nursery school if the teacher had to miss a day because Lauren could take over. And even as in nursery school, my sister, everybody knew she could run anything. And she's still that way today.
Yes.
And some of my friends, and we don't live near each other, but she's kind of offended a friend of mine here or there because she comes in and kind of takes over. And my friends are like, wait a minute, you just dropped in here. We've been here, forever. What makes you think? But that's the natural born powerful choleric. They are the natural boss of the world. They're very goal oriented, and they're very driven even as children. And then the last one I mentioned last, not because it's the least important, but because it is the least obvious to identify. And that is the peaceful phlegmatic. And they're the ones that are kind of the Eeyores of life in Winnie the Pooh. And they're in the background. The green is the kind of calming presence that the peaceful phlegmatic has. And as a parent, trying to find something that child can be excited about is very difficult, because they really would rather just sit in their room and do whatever is their thing, video games or whatever, but they really don't have a need for other people, and they're more that quiet, thoughtful, introspective, but easygoing kind of person.
And then is there a resource on your website where if anybody wants to follow along and see this, that they can kind of look at it? Because you had, with the colors and the descriptions, it was just really helpful to be able to kind of guide for those that aren't on YouTube watching.
Yeah, there definitely are. First off, on the website, which is thepersonalities.com, there is the personality profile. We have an online version of the personality profile that I've kind of waved around for you here. And when you take that personality profile, you get an email back that has links to a lot of the support material. And there's also on our website, there's a blog, and the blog has some of these charts in with some of the articles as well.
Oh, that's amazing. Okay, so we talked about this a little bit, and I saw something on like the x-axis and the y-axis on the chart.
Yes,
It looked like one was lead and one was follow. Is that right?
Correct. Yes.
Awesome. And then so the leaders are the powerful.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah. Okay. This is awesome because I love all of this. So
there's a reason why they're arranged this way. It's very intentional arrangement. So these top two, since you brought that up, they have in common that they are the natural leaders of life.
Yep.
Now,
and that's the choleric and the sanguine.
Right. And I'm about 50-50 of those, and I'm guessing you're probably fairly comparable.
Yeah, similar. Yes. How'd you know? we'll get into that.
Yeah. So, and notice also the colors. The sanguine is the yellow, the powerful choleric is the red. Those are hot colors.
Yeah.
And when you have these two combined to one person, you have someone, especially if they're living in their weaknesses, which is a whole other area to address, you have someone who's kind of overwhelming. Because both parts of them are that leader, hot kind of personality. Then on the bottom, The bottom two are the cool colors, the peaceful phlegmatic and the perfect melancholy. And they're the cool colors, and they have in common they're more analytical. They're
Yep.
more in the background. And as it says, they're introverted, pessimistic, and soft spoken. Then you've got the commonalities on the sides as well. So you've got for the powerful choleric, and the perfect melancholy, work is the common denominator. So if you have someone who's about 50-50 of these two, which I kind of joke about my sister, she's 100% powerful choleric and 50% perfect melancholy. And then when people get that doesn't add up math-wise, I kind of go, there's a lot of my sister. I love her. She and I are going on a trip in a couple weeks together.
Aww.
But there's that person. I like to call this person the one that has these in common. And also, as I mentioned, that most of us are not, there's almost no one who's 100% any one personality.
Okay.
We're all a unique blend, kind of more like a color wheel. You have lots of blends of personality types, but generally they fall into these certain categories, such as this combination, the powerful choleric and the perfect melancholy. They're what I like to call corporate America's favorite person, because they are your natural worker bees.
Yeah.
They are your workaholic. And depending on which is the more prominent, the powerful choleric will step over people to get to that level where they want to be. Now, this combination here, the popular sanguine and the peaceful phlegmatic, they have play in common.
Yeah.
For this other combination as work, the peaceful phlegmatic and the popular sanguine have play in common. So their work is not really their strong suit.
Yeah.
But people are their strong suit. So relationships, they're more relational, and they're witty, easygoing, and not goal oriented.
Okay. And one of the things I appreciate about our conversation so far, Marita, especially from talking before, is I had always kind of been raised up learning about the DISC profile. And so that was my highest level of familiarity. I've talked about it a little bit in here. I had a guest on a year or so ago who was proficient in DISC. And I love that you're not like just term restrictive, that you're willing to translate over for us. So can you tell us, for those that are more familiar with DISC, how it would translate over?
Yeah, and DISC translates really closely, where some of the others, such as Myers-Briggs, does not. It's much more complicated. So for the DISC, and help me on this if I need it, but the powerful choleric is the D, or the dominant.
Yes.
The popular sanguine is the I, or the influencer.
Yep.
The perfect melancholy is the S, or the steady.
I think the C, we decided it was the C, because it was the task oriented, the conscientious. Yes.
Okay. And then the peaceful phlegmatic is the steady. As soon as I said steady, I'm like, no, that's got to be.
No, it's the other one. We got it. We got it. This is so good. Okay. So, and I had always understood it as like from the front person. So like the D was the CEO, the I was like the salesman.
Yes.
The C was kind of the I don't know how, I mean, I don't know if this,
I
was going to say the bean counter. I was like, that's pejorative. What's better? The accountant. There we go. And then the S was like, somehow I can only describe this by animals, like the Labrador Retriever, like always there for you.
Yes.
And
interesting on that, when you look at a corporate setting, which you've just brought up, oftentimes the peaceful phlegmatic, because they are steady, they are reliable, they are trustworthy, they tend to stay at the same company forever. Where the powerful choleric, they get mad at the boss because they think they know more than the boss, and they basically, will say heck with you, and they're out of there. And so often the peaceful phlegmatic gets promoted into a place where they're really not comfortable anymore. Where they've got to hire and fire, and they've got to be the disciplinarian. And yes, as an intelligent human being, they can be sent to, let's say, Dale Carnegie or management classes or sales training. And as an intelligent human being, they can learn skills that are not natural to them. In fact, any one of us can learn skills that are not natural to us. But specifically, for the peaceful phlegmatic, if they get pushed into that management kind of role beyond their comfort level, they often burn out more than others because it's just such a strain. And when they come home after dealing with people all day, they literally need a half hour in the recliner before they're asked to do anything with the children or cook dinner or do anything. They need some just time to just kind of tune out and recover.
This is so important, Marita, because I first of all, I saw this all the time in law when I was in corporate law, which is very different than more litigation, but where we're really drawing up contracts and things like that. And the joke was, you know, what's the prize for being a lawyer is like the prize for a blueberry pie eating contest is more blueberry pie, you know, of just like you get promoted up to more and more work, but also more and more what ends up happening in law is that you flip and you become a manager of lawyers once you hit a certain level. And they were that was not what they were good
That's
at
not
or
their
wanted to
skill
do.
set.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So here you have more of this accountant personality and temperament where your job was to read every detail of every word and find the errors and assess risk and determine benefits and costs, and then you needed a little bit of the hobnobbing kind of shaking hands kissing babies to grow the business side of things. But of course most of us didn't realize that because we were really good workers, which is how we got to be lawyers. And then you get high enough and now you're managing the you know the technicians, and you're completely out of your element because you don't care about people, you care about the work.
Bottom line, and
Yeah, and it's not that they didn't care about the people, but they didn't know how to manage the people. I remember having a conversation at one point where it was 2008, and you know, the market for lawyers was contracting, and you know, there were like salary freezes and all of that type of thing.
Hey, Mama, let me ask you a question. When's the last time you gave yourself some white space? I am not talking about a trip to the bathroom alone or even the grocery store. When's the last time you had what I like to call some no one needs me time? For homeschooling entrepreneurs, time like this isn't a luxury. It's actually a key component to a healthy business, homeschool, and family life. So, if you're ready for your next respite, whether it's you by yourself, you and your spouse, or a family trip, join us at our peaceful haven, Just Like Paradise, located on gorgeous Oak Island, North Carolina. This 3-bedroom house is just a short walk to the ocean and nearby restaurants. It has a screened-in back porch with fireplace that is to die for, hot tub, and even a fire pit if you're feeling ambitious. Book through the link in the show notes, and then you have a unique discount code, podcast100, to get a $100 discount on your stay as a thank you for being one of my listeners. Get your next getaway on the calendar today.
Salary freezes and all of that type of thing. And one of the folks that I knew in the field was talking about how hard it is to support lawyers because they're used to these pay raises and they're used to these perks and benefits, and all of that is going away. And I remember looking at that person and saying, hey, like, what if you just said thank you for all the hard work everybody's doing? And it was like shocking. Just oh, yeah, I can bring in, because I was, I'm an I, or a popular sanguine, and so for me, I'm looking around saying somebody's mom just died. Let's buy him flowers. Hey, you look sad. Are you okay? Hey, let's have a party in the office, and tell people thank you. And so, but yeah, of course, I didn't stay because I was dying inside because all we cared about was commas and phrases and all of those kinds of things. So what I love about what you're saying, that was a long tangent, but here's the point that comes to mind so fully is when we can even start out, what I hear you saying is we can even start out in work we love, and we can get moved out of it. And if we don't understand how we are wired, then we're going to miss that maybe it's, yeah, we can stay there, but maybe it's okay to go, actually, my competencies don't fall in this bucket at all. Don't put me there. Like, I know it's a promotion, but keep me on the floor with all the people kind of supporting the team instead of putting me in a corner office leading the team, because that's not where I shine.
Yeah, and a good manager will understand that and work with you to create this new position that gets done what they need you to do, but also works for you. I have a whole chapter in the book Wired That Way that deals with the workplace and what kind of personalities are best in what positions and so forth.
Oh, so okay, because ultimately, because one of the things I think I've talked to you about, Marita, is like one of the hearts behind Overwhelmed to Overcomer is like, let's have you where you are built to shine. Like the Lord created you uniquely. And so this is why I so wanted you to come on. So, but you told me, we talked a little bit, you've almost got, I feel like it's almost like a party trick where you can identify what temperament people have. What's the scoop? Because I feel like, okay, we're recording this in the fall, but I'm like, this needs to be in December. This episode belongs in December because man, are we in the middle of family season right now. So we walk into a room, whether it's the dinner party or the work thing or whatever it is, we're people all during this season. How can we identify what someone's bent is? And then we're going to go in a little deeper about why it matters, but take me there first. How can we know who someone is?
Okay, so again, I like to start with the popular sanguine because it's the most obvious to identify. There's two key things that you might want to make note of about the popular sanguine. And the first one is that the popular sanguine is loud. And we tend to have a loud voice that people, and most of us who are popular sanguines have been shushed for our entire lives. People are always telling us, shh, you don't need to talk so loud. We can hear you. My ex-husband used to say to me, it's a telephone, not a tin can with a string. So those of us who are the part of why is my ex-husband.
Right. I'm like, it's funny. And it's also potentially really not nice.
Yeah.
But
So the popular sanguine is loud. They also tend to like loud clothing. Now, this is more so with women than with men because we have more fashion freedom. Yeah. But if you see someone in bright colors and big flowers or, and big hair and, anything showy, yeah, they're going to be the popular sanguine. The other key thing about the popular sanguine is that we are open. First off, we have an open mouth. We tend to be the ones who are talking. We also have an open life. We tell you things about our lives that as we're telling you them, you're maybe going, why is she telling me this? This is TMI. I mean, I think the expression TMI was created about the popular sanguine because they're the ones who will, you ask them one simple question and they're telling you all this stuff. You're like, whoa, where did that come from? And yes, then the other thing that's open is they have very open body language. They're the ones that if you said to them, if I tied your hands behind your back, you couldn't talk, could you? And no, they really couldn't. So those are the two key things to watch for in the popular sanguine. And when I'm teaching a group with this, and just when I tell them that much, I can see in their eyes, and they're nodding like you are right now, that they're realizing, oh yeah, I know who that is. I know exactly who that is. Yeah. Then second is the perfect melancholy. And remember I said they are opposite. So the popular sanguine is loud and open. Yeah. Perfect melancholy is quiet and closed. Yep. So they have a quiet voice. They're the ones, my husband now is this perfect melancholy. And actually my ex-husband was too. You'd think I'd learn, but anyway, I'm constantly saying to him, what? I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. And where the popular sanguine, when we get excited, our voice gets louder. Yeah. Perfect melancholy, when they get comfortable with you, their voice gets quieter because they know their whole life they've been told, speak up, I can't hear you. So at the beginning of a conversation with a perfect melancholy, they may be speaking in a good normal voice, not loud, but a good normal voice. And by the end, as they get comfortable, their voice gets softer and softer and softer. So the melancholy has a quiet voice. They also like quiet clothing. They don't want clothing that stands out. They like basic classic kinds of styles. Then where the popular sanguine is open, perfect melancholy is closed. First off, they operate on what the military calls a need to know basis. They don't tell you anything unless you need to know it. Now, I like to say for those of us who are the popular sanguine, if we remove from our conversation everything that no one needs to know, We do have silence is golden, which is how the melancholy views that. Is silence is golden is kind of one of their mottos. So they have a closed mouth, they have a closed life, and they have very limited body language, close to the body. They're not flailing. If they use gestures at all, they're very close.
Yes.
Then the powerful choleric, the best way to identify the powerful choleric is not so much by clothing or body language or voice, it's more by the air in the room. When the powerful choleric walks in the room, it's like there's an electricity in the room. There's a charge in the room, and you feel that they are there. And part of that is the way they walk, because, and I can't show you that here as I can when I'm teaching a class, but when they walk, it's kind of thump, 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 thump. They're very heavy footed. My husband tells me the whole house shakes when I walk. And so the powerful choleric, that's one of the real ways to identify them. Another thing is their body language. They have 3 gestures that are really consistent with this personality type. And those 3 gestures are finger pointing in your face. And in fact, I believe that expression in your face was created for powerful choleric. They're in your face, hands on their hips, usually accompanied by an expression that kind of says, how could you be so stupid? I can't believe you did that. And then the 3rd gesture is a fist pounding on a desk or a wall or even into another hand to emphasize a point. Then the last one's the peaceful phlegmatic, and truly process of elimination is the best. You've got someone sitting at your Christmas dinner table and you look at them and you're trying to figure out what personality they are. Are they that loud, fun-loving, outgoing sanguine? No. Are they that strong, driven, goal-oriented, powerful choleric? No. Are they that respectful, meticulous, cautious, silent kind of person, the perfect melancholy? No. Well, then chances are they are the peaceful phlegmatic, and that's the best way to identify them.
Someone told me with regard to DISC that the peaceful phlegmatic equivalent was the majority of the population, that it was more common than the others, or at least to have a strong thread of it through. Would you say that? I can't remember.
That is not my experience.
Okay, talk to me.
I don't have a big study. I haven't done a global study on this, but that definitely is not my experience. I really would say it's close to 25%, with probably this top one being a little more dominant, and that may be just more that their dominance is more obvious.
Yeah, that makes sense. That it feels weighted or whatever. And I don't remember if she was working off of like a gut feel or if she had data. And again, it was DISC as opposed to.
The thing is that's interesting about the peaceful phlegmatic is that the peaceful phlegmatic, or the green, because their personality traits are not so intense, it's much easier for them to flex.
Yes.
So they can be kind of that all-purpose person that if there's a need for leadership, yes, they can lead. They don't need to lead, but they can lead. If there's a need for other characteristics, they're very friendly. They're very witty. And as such, you might think that they're the popular sanguine. So they're more flexible in who they are. And perhaps that's where that comment's coming from.
Yeah, that makes sense. So then talk to me about this, Marita. And I feel like I just want to dip into these waters, and then I still want to come back into like all of the kind of why does it matter knowing people's temperaments. What have you found as far as how like trauma, pain, sin kind of colors? Like, I think, for example, when you talk about like, and I'll just be revelatory about my own life, no surprise because I'm a sanguine.
Let's talk about me.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Let's talk about me. But I think about like how quiet and reserved I was for most of my schooling because I was one of the nerdy kids. Like I wasn't popular. I didn't have friends, and I was awkward. I was kind of weird. And so I shut down. But when I remember I was getting ready to transfer schools, and all of a sudden I became silly and wild because I was leaving. And so I felt free. And so how much can we identify, given that we're all kind of walking around with varying degrees of pain and
Yes.
damage and all of that kind of stuff? How does that color this work?
Well, it definitely does, especially depending on the level of pain that there may be. If there's something such as sexual abuse or something of that nature versus something a little more benign, like a teacher being mean to you.
Yeah.
But even a teacher being mean to you, especially for the popular sanguine, if a teacher constantly told you you need to sit down and shut up,
Yeah.
that can squash you.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so often, and this is probably a little more complex than what we want to get into, but when someone takes the personality profile, especially someone who does have some serious damage in their background, they may test out to be sanguine melancholy combination.
Okay.
And that's a totally opposite personality. I don't believe that God made anyone naturally to be this way, but
Mhm.
the abuse on this person
Mhm.
often creates depression. It
Yeah.
creates withdrawn. It creates, if I make myself invisible,
Mhm.
maybe they won't hurt me again. Does that
Yeah.
make sense?
Yeah, so in other words, the abuse on for those who couldn't see, the abuse on the sanguine can push someone into melancholy,
Right.
and so that could be a clue if we see a diagonal line where we move
Yes,
from
definitely much.
sanguine
Yes,
to
definitely so.
melancholy.
I mean,
Yeah,
there's a story in the book I tell of a friend
yeah,
of mine, and I like to use this example because the abuse was unintentional and sort of mild. And this friend of mine, as I knew her as an adult, we were not childhood friends. I knew her as an adult, and she took the personality profile, and she came out to be that sanguine melancholy split. And she really struggled with perfectionism. That was something she really struggled with. And as we talked about it, I saw her more as a sanguine, which
yeah,
when we were together, she was comfortable, she was herself, and she was a sanguine. As we talked about it, she grew up in a Christian home and her father was a pastor,
mhm,
and they were in a very strict denomination. And she remembers as a child that the only way dad would tell her she was a good girl, which is very important to the popular sanguine,
mhm.
the only way dad would tell her she was a good girl was if she sat in the front pew at church while dad was preaching and she basically behaved like a melancholy.
Yeah,
She sat there, and if she did that, then dad would give her the praise that she
mm,
desperately wanted.
yeah,
She also remembers, she told me one day she and her sister were they were in the back seat going home from church on Sunday. And this is back when back seats were huge and there were no seat
yeah,
belts. And, people today probably can't even imagine it was ever like that, but it was. And she and her sister were horsing around in the back, hitting each other and swatting at each other and giggling and whatever. And dad turned around from the front seat and said to them, there is no place in the Christian life for frivolity.
mm,
So now, as a little girl, she subconsciously realizes that
mhm,
the only way dad thinks I'm okay is if I behave like a melancholy. Now, obviously, she didn't have that verbiage,
mhm.
but then she realizes who I am is not okay to God.
Yeah,
And so I have to be this other person for dad to like me and for God to like me. So,
yeah,
like I said, dad wasn't meaning to hurt her. It wasn't like he was sexually abusing her, but he meant well.
yeah,
But for her, that squashed who she was.
mhm.
And so that abuse showed up in this kind of split personality that she had.
Mm. Oh, that's so good. And I will note I've talked to people who have done personality tests and they've talked about as their healing journey has progressed that they've seen the needle move.
Yes.
And I mean I found that as well, that I'm more myself, and I think
Yes.
we all become more ourselves as we go before the
Well,
Lord and
yes,
experience that healing.
yes and no. Definitely when you're talking about healing, we become
Yeah.
more ourselves. But then there's a whole nother level, and I've alluded to this a couple times, and that is as we grow and we mature, our goal is to live in our strengths.
Oh yeah. Okay. Let's go there. Cause you and I talked about this a little bit beforehand and I really, really loved it. Okay. All right. So talk about that.
All right, so we're talking about living in your strength. And our goal, one of the things about understanding your personality is it's like a marker. It's
Mhm.
like if you were in a mall, and nobody goes to malls anymore, I don't think, but
I don't think so.
if
I
you're in a
know.
new city and you're trying to find your way around and there's a map on the street corner in New York City or whatever, and there's a dot that says you are here.
Mhm.
And then you look at that map and you figure out where you want to go.
Mhm.
Okay. So your personality profile is kind of like the you are here dot. It helps
Yes.
you to see who are you right now, strengths and weaknesses, who are you? But ultimately, and especially as Christians, where we want to go is to be more like Christ.
Yes.
And if you did a personality profile on the life of Christ, you would see that he has the strengths of all four personalities and the weaknesses of none.
Yeah.
And so as we grow and mature, you want to be that person who is living in your strengths. And regardless of which personality you are, if you are living in your strengths, you are a person people want to be with.
Yeah.
So we talk about it. And again, for example, the popular sanguine in their weaknesses, they're loud, they're shallow, they're impulsive, erratic, overly dramatic, self centered, superficial. That's not anything anyone wants to be or with. I mean, excuse me, no one wants to be with that person. But in their strengths, the popular sanguine is energetic, warm, enthusiastic, approachable, inviting, and a natural cheerleader. So,
Yeah.
for each one of us, regardless of what your personality type is, our ultimate goal is to grow and to mature. And
Mhm.
ultimately, we learn skills that are not natural to us. So I can learn to be in the background. I can learn to be quiet. It's not who I naturally am, and it's not a mask. It's a
Mhm.
different thing from what we were talking about with my friend who thought she was the sanguine melancholy. Instead, this is something that I have intellectually said, you know what? I really need to be a more balanced person.
Mhm.
And so I don't need to be the center of every conversation.
Yeah.
I can sit in the background and I can ask questions and draw someone out,
Yeah.
even though that's not who I naturally am. I can learn, I can grow, I can mature.
It makes me think about Paul saying, I become all people, all things to all
And to all
men.
people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's so good because ultimately, what is our objective? It's to win people over to the Lord. It's to love well. And so that often means denying our flesh and instead of let me ask all the questions about myself, okay, let's find out about you. Like let's lean into who you are and what lights you up and yeah, so okay, I can see
Yeah.
this
And
and
so
that's such a beautiful
sometimes,
contrast.
seriously, there are some people who have been Christians their a whole adult life. They have just truly worked on maturing and balancing and becoming Christ-like. And when that person takes the personality profile, if they take it as they are today, which is not what you're supposed to do, you're supposed to take it as to who you are naturally before the Holy Spirit worked on maturing you and so
Mm.
forth.
Mhm.
But sometimes those people, it's really hard to tell what their personality is
Yeah.
because they have become so Christ-like, so balanced that there's not that obvious glaring personality.
Mhm. Oh, okay. That's awesome. Okay, so we and I oh, that's what I was gonna say. I was like, there was another thing in that. I've seen some like with some of the personality things, in particular the Enneagram. There's been like that's become really
Mhm.
popularized, and then people are very like divided about it. But one of the things I heard described very well around the conversation of who am I is that like this is more kind of diagnostic about okay, this is our bent and now we take every thought captive. The work's the same. It's just that now we have a deeper understanding of who we are and other people are, so that we can be more intentional about potentially our areas of most needed refinement, and then when we look
Which
to
is
other
like what I
people,
said about the you are here button.
yes, I love it
It tells you
exactly.
this is who I am now, but that's not where I want to stay. I want to go here.
Yes, I love that. And then I think the converse of that, and this is where I'd love to go for a little bit now, is like then we look to other people and we go, okay, this seems to be their bent. Now, how can I offer grace and give them room to be, to be themselves, even though it might chafe some of my stuff
Yes.
in my natural man. So take me there. Like, why, talk to me about the fruit of really coming to know who another person is.
Okay, so let's go back to Christmas dinner. We talked about you've got someone and you looked at the loud person or the strong person, the background person, and you're looking at them and you now see what their basic personality is. And I'm oversimplifying this, but you now
Yeah.
see what their basic personality is. This is where the rubber meets the road. Is you have this knowledge. So you kind of called it like a party trick, but you have this knowledge that kind of sets you apart. And now you need to use this knowledge. You need to apply this knowledge in that you need to be mature enough to step outside of who you are and give that person, that other person, what they need. And that and approach them, use language that they can relate to more. You need to give them space. For example, a peaceful phlegmatic at the dinner table will never say anything unless the conversation is brought to them
Mm-hmm.
and they're asked questions that are appropriate for them.
Yeah.
If you don't have that level of maturity, it's very easy for those of us on the top part of the chart to just run right over everybody
Yeah.
else. And then they won't leave feeling valued. And
Yeah.
so that's where this really, to me, where the rubber meets the road. But it takes a maturity to first identify that personality type of those other people and then adjust your approach to them in a
Mm-hmm.
way that allows them to flourish and to shine.
Mm. I can see this. I'm just thinking about my own children, and I've got a child who I think is a melancholy, although because of age, he's a little loud. I think that's age. But like, for example, if he starts a thought, he gets real upset if he doesn't have quiet to be able to finish it. He just
Uh-huh.
needs that, like, he kind of pulls everything
Okay.
in and then needs to be able to present it. And it's been really interesting, and I'm excited to have grown through this conversation, Marita, to be able, because the kids will be like, why is he screaming? I have something to say too. We got 4 kids, it gets loud. And we talk a lot about bent of like, that's just his personality. Like, he needs to get his thought out, and it's really stressful for him if he doesn't have the quiet to do that. Whereas with 4 kids, the others are like popping up and down, they've got all the
Yeah.
things to say, but he needs that quiet. And so I love how you're saying, first, we have to be willing to look across the aisle at the other person, across the dinner table at the other person, and then we need to be willing to bend to kind of give them what they need, to give them that room. And it does take maturity. Like, I see, even though it's a practice that we value in our family, how hard it is for the kids, where it's like they see he's upset, he's crying because he can't get his thought out. But, in our flesh, we just want to tell our story first, and it doesn't
Yes.
matter.
Yes. And also with someone like that, who it does take a little longer to get things out. And my husband now, as I mentioned, he's actually these two. He is a CPA, the accountant,
Yes.
and he's these two. And sometimes, in order for him to actually get his thoughts out, I have to just sit there and not say a thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very hard for me, and I just have to sit there and we sit out on the patio in the evening, and sometimes there's just silence. And that's what he needs to be able to process and get that thought out. And it's difficult to, just let that be.
Take me to that, Marita. Take me to those intimate family relationships. In your work, what have you seen as a result of people truly coming to understand what their spouse or their child is from a temperament perspective? What's the gift?
I know what I want to tell you is just a little awkward, but I'm going to tell you. So I am my husband's third wife. He is my second husband. And he is, as I mentioned, that peaceful, phlegmatic, perfect melancholy combination. He's a CPA. He goes to work all day and does numbers. He comes home and literally sits in his recliner. He can sit in his recliner all evening if I let him. Well, I do let him, because why wouldn't I let him?
Yeah.
But he's comfortable just sitting. And one day he said to me, and this is the gift, he said to me, "You are the first wife that's ever really understood me."
Oh, oh,
But see, that only works if I tell you that I'm the third wife, which, you
Yeah.
know,
I love it.
but
What a gift.
yeah, yeah, you're the
Because
first wife that's ever understood me.
and you said something, I can't remember if it was before we started recording or not, that we tend to choose our opposite.
Oh, yes, we haven't, that was before or at the very beginning.
Yes. Okay. It's very important. This is very important. Why do we tend to choose our opposite?
Well, I believe that's the way God set us up. And because where I'm, I'm loud and outgoing and I can go and do something every night, which I am this week kind of. And I have 4 nights in a row I'm busy. And my husband's like, do we have to have something every night? And so what I'm doing tonight, I didn't even invite him. He doesn't have to go, and he's really happy about that.
Yes, yes.
So,
We have that in our home too.
but I know that's him, so I can accept that. But so where I always use my fingers as my graphic for this, but where I'm strong, he's weak.
Yeah.
So, I'm not doing that very well. But we come together. When
Yeah.
we come together, we bring a full complement of skills to the table.
I
One day
love
he
it.
told me if it wasn't for you, I would probably just sit here day in and day out. I would never do anything. And that is true. That is probably what would happen. And, but he takes care of, like, I don't even have to think about taxes. I don't have to worry about any of that kind of stuff. Hallelujah. And he sets me free to,
Yes.
like, I was on a trip with my girlfriends a couple weeks ago. And when I texted him, I said, thank you for giving me the freedom to have fun with my girlfriends.
I
And
love
he
it.
texted back, you're welcome.
Aww.
So I need that time with my girlfriends because they provide me an emotional oomph that I'm not getting at home.
Yeah.
But yet we come together as opposites. We bring a full complement of skills to the table. And almost always, I throw in almost just to give me an out, but really without exception, when I see a couple where they are both the same personality type, and they talk to me and I'm like, yeah, you really do seem like, yep, you're the same. Almost always it's at least a second, if not a third marriage.
Ooh,
Now, I didn't do that, but
it's fascinating. Yeah.
it is because we're naturally attracted to that opposite personality. There's also the easiest, I say the easiest marriages to get along are where they have one square in common. So I'm these top two. My
Yeah.
husband is these bottom two. We have
Yeah.
no square in common.
Yeah.
That's if you have to. I don't know how anyone with that combination that doesn't understand this stays married. So if
Yes.
you've got, like, say I'm this and my husband is this, we both have the go kind of square. So
Yeah.
we have a supercharged, going all the time, busy all the time, doing things kind of marriage.
Yeah.
I
Yep.
have some friends that she's this and he's this,
Yeah.
and they have the peaceful phlegmatic in common, and
Yep.
it's hard to blast them out of the house. They're content. They're content.
Yeah.
They don't see a need to go and do. And so, but I think God naturally, we're naturally attracted to someone who is opposite from us for that reason, is that they fill in our gaps. They're strong where we are weak, and we are weak where they're strong.
Yeah. And what I'm just going to give this in words for anybody who's listening on just with audio, is she's interlacing her fingers as she's talking about these weaknesses and strengths so that it is a complete, full, like, unit.
Yes.
And then that oftentimes what I'm seeing you describe is that we'll have two of the four bents. So maybe a sanguine and a choleric. And then if we're matched with a melancholy and phlegmatic, which is your husband, then sanctification is a big part of the game, to do it well, to love well there. But that often it'll be like there's a choleric and sanguine is matched with a like a
melancholy.
Choleric melancholy. Okay, so that there's a box in common. Yeah, okay. And what I think is so important as we're looking at the most important relationships in our lives is we so often tend to make wrong our partner or our children where they don't match us. It's like, why don't you want to, like a really common one in our marriage, my husband and I's marriage was, he likes home. It took, we did a coaching program that involved personality testing and really went in depth. And I had always thought that he was choleric because he's kind of like he leads our family. He's very, he's just a big strong guy. I was like, surely he must be choleric. Well, it turns out, and then I was like, but he just doesn't, and he has a lot of opinions and he shares them very openly at home, but he tested as phlegmatic, and you couldn't knock me over with a feather. And it turns out that I'm sanguine and choleric, and he's phlegmatic. And I'm like, this answers so many questions in our marriage because I kept approaching him as the dominant CEO type, and he's really just happy to be home and close to his family.
Yep, that would explain it.
I know, it was just, but because he has big opinions and, likes politics and likes thinking about things and all of that, it seemed like he would, because I hate conflict. And so I thought there's no way I'm this, this from the front type because I hate conflict. But that's just some of that's just because that was kind of how I was raised,
The sanguines are natural people pleasers.
Ah, there we go. Okay, you're unlocking all this for me. Okay. So, okay, and so, but I'll finish what I was going to say is like forever it was like, why doesn't he want to do anything? Why doesn't he want to talk through these things and figure things out and looking in the future? Right? There we go. We need coffee. We just need coffee together to figure all this out. And it's been so important for me to just stop making him wrong. Why? Because I picked my other. I needed his compliment. I needed him to slow me down. I needed him to say, we're doing too much. Can we just be home? The kids are the worst for wear this week. Let's just say no to a couple of things. And also, as the people pleaser, this is helping so much because this is a sanguine thing. I didn't realize that. I didn't want to say no to things. And he's like, you just say no. You just don't do it, And so I think the invitation maybe that we can extend, Marita, and if you have more to add to it, let's do it, because like I know we need to bring the plane to a close, especially since it's December when this is airing. So people have things to go and do, but I hope you guys have been as blessed as I have by just digging into these conversations. May we just see our other and go, thank you. Like, I love what your husband said. Just like, what were the words? You've accepted me for who I am.
You're the first wife who's understood me.
Who's understood me. How much do we long to be understood? And here's this opportunity to give understanding to those we love most in the world. And maybe we could consider that as a Christmas gift to those we love, that we might seek to, oh gosh, who is it? Is it Teresa of Avila? May I seek to understand more than to be understood. It's like a whole prayer that's like, may I give these things instead, may I give the things I most want to receive effectively. May I seek to understand my husband. May I seek to understand my children. May I seek to understand my sister-in-law, my mother-in-law, my aunt, whoever those crazy relatives are that you might be encountering this month. Seek to understand them. See them as the gift that they are, the foil that's going to help us to grow and to stretch into new spaces.
Beautiful.
What further encouragement, Marita, do you have to offer?
As we wrap it up, I just want to remind people of that Romans 12:18 verse, and to realize that understanding those other people is a tool.
Yeah.
It is a tool that allows us to fulfill that biblical mandate. We can't control how those other people will respond. And if you've had any experience in life at all, someone listening, you know that there are those people out there that no matter how hard you try, they do not want to be gotten along with.
Yes.
But it's our responsibility to do what we can to be at peace with all men. And the personalities give us a wonderful tool to be able to do that.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Marita, thank you so much for your work and for sharing it with us today. What a gift.
Totally fun talking with you.
You as well. So we're gonna link everything in show notes, but anything in particular that you want to highlight for my people as they connect with you?
Mainly we talked about thepersonalities.com, And there's a blog that has a lot of this information, that has some of the charts in it that you can use. And if you take and all of that's free, but if you take the online personality profile, which costs $4, so it's
worth it.
It's very easy to do. And you put in your email address, it will email you links to all of the charts that I've been showing you. You'll see those.
I love it. This has been amazing, Marita. I know all my people will be so excited to connect with this. Thank you again.
My pleasure. Thank you.
And to you, friend, thank you for being here in the midst of, as we're planning to release this, a busy season. I know there's a lot going on. I hope you've taken this time to really just reflect, how can I seek to understand? How can I be grateful for this gift that I've been given in an unfamiliar package? And how can I trust the Lord so that I can, as far as it depends on me, live at peace with all men? You got
Amen.
this, because he's got you.
Friend, thank you so much for listening to this most recent episode of Overwhelmed to Overcomer. So listen, the whole idea behind this mission is that when we endeavor to be brave with our lives, we need to do it together. Belonging is key. So if you resonated with the message from this episode, share it with a friend. Do it together. Thank you again, and never forget, you've got this because he's got you.